And I'll say that you're citing a poll from the Washington Post and the University of Maryland that's at 34% and said it was justified. Actually, if you go deeper in the crosstabs and all the research here, you find the more frightening numbers, smaller percentages, but still a worryingly large percentage, and close in the 10% range of people who not only think it's justified, but will be willing to use it, will be willing to actually themselves commit political violence, which is going up quite a bit further than saying that that it just could be justified in your mind if it was meant to save the republic. Ben, you, early in this fortnight that we're talking about, you got a lot of people's attention when you said on the air that the stuff you were seeing on the online boards was as bad or worse than what you saw in the run-up to 1/6. I want you to just to kind of, it's one of the things that's most amazing is when you play that sound that of all those elected officials, it's first of all, they're saying things like there's Stasi, Gestapo, that very language we've never heard before really in American politics. And it's a pure echo of some of the stuff that you're getting in the online. It's not like there's even much of a conveyor belt now. It's the same language online as it is on Capitol Hill, on Fox News. It's all the same, right? And equally scary.
Yeah, I think let's take a step back and think about what accelerationism is, right? The people who are public figures in the accelerationist rhetoric, they say the toned down version of what's happening in those message boards. Right. They don't target people specifically. They don't say we're going after this guy or we're going to kill him. People on the message boards say that. They say we're going to go kill these people with these weapons at this time. So I'll tell you what they're talking about on these message boards.
Can you give me a definite accelerationist?
Yeah, accelerationist.
So what is that? What is that? Start that.
It's the idea that Steve Bannon is an accelerationist. The idea that the state needs to be broken down, right. It needs to be taken apart completely, then replaced with something else, because it's so far beyond repair that we have to get rid of it by any means necessary. And that's where we are now with the GOP. We have to be very clear about that. Right. And that's really the clearest thing of what's happening with these terrorists who are trying to, like the guy in Cincinnati last week. They don't feel control. They don't feel power. So I'll tell you what they're not talking about first in these forums. They're not talking about voting.
Right.
they're never talking about voting.
Right.
Because they don't think it counts. They think democracy is a sham and it has to be overrode by their guy because they can't fathom that somebody wouldn't like Donald Trump. It's a complete cult of personality. What they are talking about is plans of action. So recently they're talking about how to get around blocks in specific states that allow you to download blueprints to get ghost guns, because they are certain the IRS, in this conspiracy theory, is going to come to your door and take your guns.
Right. Well, let's pause on this for a second. Yep. Let's talk about the IRS, because in the middle of this fortnight from hell that we've just gone through, that there was a moment when after all these Republicans came out, elected officials and media people who came out and attacked the FBI, there was one momentary pause at the end of last week where it seemed like the word had gone out from Trump world that maybe something bad was about to happen, which in turn was about to happen. And they suddenly shifted, like it was like student body right. And they suddenly decided to seize on the IRS. I want to play first a mashup of some of the anti-IRS rhetoric. And then I want to focus on one particular piece of that rhetoric. So let's play the first one right now.
Is the IRS gearing up for war in our country? Is Nancy Pelosi trying to start a nuclear war in Asia? Is there an effort by the national security state to stoke violence in a civil war here at home?
Those IRS agents are designed to come after you. They're not designed to come after the billionaires and the big corporations. They're designed to come after small businesses and working families.
They're going to go after the mom and pop. They're going to go after the small business person, the independent contractor, the Uber driver, and they're going to focus on basically parts of the country that don't support what the regime is trying to do.
I mean, just the regime, of course, is like with DeSantis there. Just for the record, everybody, there's not going to be 87,000 new IRS agents. It's just the basic premise of this is BS. But just how much is that lit up? I mean, is the IRS suddenly in the worlds that you study? Are people like really focused on the IRS? Should people at the IRS be as afraid as some people are in law enforcement about what's about to happen to them?
Yeah, that they turned their target to the IRS last week because there was, there was news that that's what's in that budget, and that's what allows them to take the IRA and say this is exactly what you're supposed to be afraid of. You have to realize in these spaces it's targeted harassment campaigns based on where the guy tells you to target your ire, right? And there are, 4 or 5 people right now on the right that have that kind of, I would say, directive-giving ability. One would be Donald Trump. Then there were like smaller accounts. There were like accounts called like Libs of TikTok or whatever that direct people. For example, there were threats against Boston Children's Hospital this week,
right?
Because they were told they were treating trans children there. So the DOJ had to get involved in that. So they turn on a dime like moths to a flame to whatever target they're told to by the largest influencers in those spaces. Right. That's the scary part of this, is that's not an accident. Right. That is literally that's the infrastructure that's been built around the far-right media that has now consumed Fox News-style media over the last 2 or 3 years.
Right, and Democrats often look up and say, "Man, they seem like they're really coordinated." They are really coordinated.
Yes, they are.
It's not an illusion, right? Michael Steele, I want to come back to you because I'm going to play this next piece of sound, and I'm using this as an object lesson. This is illustrative of a lot of other things. Here's Chuck Grassley talking about the IRS. Let's play that clip.
Are they going to have a strike force that goes in with AK-15s already loaded, ready to shoot some small business person in Iowa with these? Because I think they're going after middle class and small business people.
So I ask you, Michael Steele, there was a time in my adult lifetime when Democratic kids coming out of my Northwestern University who went to work as summer interns in Chuck Grassley's office, and he was kind of seen as a moderate Republican. Now he's gotten more and more conservative over time, but that is not conservative. That's someone who's been that's like invasion of the body snatchers. Chuck Grassley basically saying, painting a picture of IRS agents with automatic weapons looking for people who have pass-through income and brandishing them in a strike force fashion. It's like crazy conspiracy theory, paranoia run amok. What happened to Chuck Grassley and by extension to all the people who used to be like Chuck Grassley in the Republican Party who now talk this way?
I liken it to an infection that could have been stemmed back in 2016 on that stage where 15 Republicans stood next to Donald Trump and refused to shut him down, refused to cauterize the wound that he was beginning to open. Instead, they, again, saw value to that moment in two ways. One, well, we can control this guy because he doesn't know what he's talking about. And two, the base. The base is feeding off of it. It gets them stirred up. We want them to turn out. Chuck Grassley, even though he's stepping down and going on, is still now infected by that particular aspect of republicanism, where, to Ben's very important points, and I hope people really listen to what Ben is telling you, because the boy is dropping some knowledge, because you have to understand what we're up against here and how it works. This is ultimate tail-wagging dog. Chuck Grassley and the leadership in the past would either ignore or shoot that stuff down. Now they're consumed by it. They are fed from it, and they regurgitate it. Chuck Grassley knows damn well the IRS is not armed with AR-15s coming to somebody's small business. He knows that. But there is no upside in being honest about that. There is no political benefit inside the GOP as it's currently constituted to push back against that. So it becomes a self-perpetuating, rolling over, continual regurgitation of conspiracies, lies, and bull. And he, Ted Cruz, all of these folks know damn well that everything that's coming out of their mouth is a straight-up, bold-faced lie. Because if it isn't Ted, and if it isn't Senator Grassley, put the evidence in front of the American people. Show us where in the bill it says that's what they're going to do. Don't conjecture, don't assume, don't lie about it, prove it. But you can't, baby, because you can't. You know why? Because it's not true. And it goes exactly to what Ben is trying to tell people, how this aspect of our politics has now been taken over and consumed by this very small cadre of influencers, white nationalists, and others. And the GOP is a damn sucker for every last bit of it.
All right, so that's a dark vision, and I would sometimes I'd be a little bit hesitant to go even further, but we're going to go further. No one on this panel is going anywhere. We gotta ask a few more questions about all this after the break. We're going to talk about the fallout from what we've seen in these last 2 weeks, and again, what can we do about this? Is there anything that can be done about it? We'll talk about that.